The text message that destroyed my life arrived at 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, right in the middle of our quarterly board meeting. Can't wait to feel you inside me again tonight. Same hotel room? I stared at my wife Beth's phone screen, my coffee growing cold as the words burned into my retinas like acid. My name is James Tate, and I'm about to tell you how I lost everything I thought mattered, then got something better. Revenge so sweet it made my teeth ache. The phone had buzzed off the conference table during my presentation about Parish Electrical's third quarter projections. Beth always forgot to silence the damn thing. I picked it up to hand it back to her when the message lit up the screen. The contact name made my stomach drop through the floor. John, do not answer. John, my older brother, company president, the golden boy who never met a mirror he didn't love. I looked across the mahogany table at Beth, sitting there in her perfect little navy dress, nodding along to whatever corporate bullshit was spilling from the CFO's mouth. Her auburn hair was pulled back in that professional bun she wore to company events, the one that made her look like she belonged in these meetings instead of just being the CEO's daughter-in-law who showed up for appearances. James? My mother Ruth's voice cut through my mental fog. The Midwest expansion numbers? I cleared my throat and clicked to the next slide, muscle memory taking over while my brain tried to process what I'd just read. 63 years old, Ruth Tate still commanded every room she entered. She'd built Parish Electrical from a two-man operation into a regional powerhouse, and she didn't tolerate distraction during business hours. Revenue projections show 18% growth if we move into the Kansas City market by Q2 next year, I heard myself saying. The words felt like they were coming from someone else's mouth. John leaned forward, his perfectly pressed shirt straining slightly over the gut he'd been developing since turning 42. That's aggressive, Jimmy. Maybe we should be more conservative. He shot that patronizing smile that had been grating on my nerves since we were kids. You know how these expansion projects can spiral out of control. Jimmy. He knew I hated being called Jimmy in professional settings, which is exactly why he did it. Classic John move, undermine me while sounding reasonable to everyone else. The numbers are solid, I replied, fighting to keep my voice level. Carl's team ran the analysis 3 times. I nodded toward Carl Robertson, our COO, and the only person in this room I completely trusted. Carl straightened his tie, a nervous habit he'd developed over 20 years of working for the Tate family. James is right. The market research supports the expansion timeline. Beth's phone buzzed again in my hand. Another message. This time I didn't look, just set it face down on the table and slid it toward her. She picked it up, glanced at the screen, and I watched her cheeks flush pink. She typed something quickly, then put the phone in her purse. The meeting dragged on for another 40 minutes. Revenue reports, staffing updates, the usual corporate theater. I participated when required, but my mind kept circling back to that message. Can't wait to feel you inside me again tonight. Again. That word was doing most of the heavy lifting in my personal destruction. When we finally adjourned, Beth was the first one out the door, claiming she needed to pick up our daughters from soccer practice. Boo was 15, Bree was 13, and they both worshipped their mother. Perfect little family, right? That's what everyone always said about the Tates. James, hang back a minute, Ruth said as the others filed out. I waited until it was just the two of us in the conference room. Ruth had that look on her face, the one that meant she'd noticed something the rest of us had missed. It was the same expression she'd worn when she'd caught our biggest competitor trying to poach our industrial clients 2 years ago. Everything all right at home? She asked. Fine, I lied. Why? You seem distracted today. That's not like you. She gathered her papers into her leather portfolio, movements precise and deliberate. And Beth left awfully quickly. Ruth had always been sharp, but her instincts about people bordered on supernatural. She'd built a multi-million-dollar business by reading faces and voices, picking up on the things people thought they were hiding. Just tired, I said. Long week. She studied me for another moment, then nodded. Take tomorrow off. Spend some time with the girls. I drove home through the tree-lined streets of Millbrook Heights, our upscale suburb where every lawn was perfectly manicured and every marriage looked perfect from the outside. Our house sat at the end of Elm Street, a colonial revival with white columns and black shutters that screamed, "Successful family lives here." Beth's BMW was in the driveway, but the house felt empty when I walked in. No sounds from the kitchen, no TV chatter from the living room. I called out, but got no answer. I found the note on the kitchen counter, written in Beth's careful script on our monogrammed stationery. James took the girls to my sister's for the weekend. Back Sunday night. There's leftover casserole in the fridge. B. No, love, Beth. No, miss you. Just B, like she was signing a business memo. I crumpled the note and tossed it in the trash, then immediately dug it back out and smoothed it flat on the counter. Something about the handwriting looked different, Hurried, guilty. My phone rang. John's name on the caller ID. "Hey, little brother," he said when I answered. His voice had that forced casual tone he used when he was lying about something. "What are you up to tonight?" "Nothing much. Beth took the girls to her sister's." "Really? That's weird. I just saw her at the Marriott downtown. Thought maybe you two were having a date night." "The Marriott? Same hotel room?" "Must have been someone else," I said. "Yeah, probably. Listen, I'm heading out of town for the weekend. Business trip to Chicago. I won't be back until Monday." Another lie. John was many things, but he wasn't stupid enough to schedule business trips on Friday nights unless it was an emergency. And if it was an emergency, he would have mentioned it in the meeting. "Safe travels," I said, and hung up. I sat in my empty kitchen, staring at Beth's note and listening to the house settle around me. 20 years of marriage, 2 daughters, a business we'd built together, even if my name wasn't on the door. My phone buzzed with a text from Carl. "Need to talk." "Something's not right with the Chicago contracts John's been handling. Can you meet me at Murphy's in an hour?" Murphy's was our usual spot, a dive bar downtown where the parish electrical crew went to decompress after particularly brutal days. The kind of place where you could talk without worrying about who might be listening. I grabbed my keys and headed back out into the October evening. The temperature was dropping, and the first dead leaves were starting to collect in the gutters. Change was coming whether I wanted it or not. Carl was already at our usual table in the back corner when I arrived, nursing a beer and looking like someone had stolen his dog. He'd loosened his tie and rolled up his sleeves, which for Carl was practically undressed. "What's wrong with the Chicago contracts?" I asked, sliding into the booth across from him. "That's just it. There are no Chicago contracts. I handle all our out-of-state work, and we don't have anything active in Illinois." He took a long pull from his beer. "But John's been billing travel expenses to Chicago every other weekend for the past 3 months. The pieces started clicking together in my head like a combination lock opening. John's mysterious business trips. Beth's sudden weekend plans with her sister, the hotel text message. "How long has this been going on?" I asked. "Since July." Always the same pattern. Leaves Friday evening, back Monday morning. Always bills it to client development, but never any follow-up contracts. July. That's when Beth had started going to those weekend yoga retreats. Or at least, that's what she'd been calling them. "Carl," I said carefully, "I need you to do me a favor. Can you pull John's expense reports for the last 6 months? Specifically the travel dates?" He studied my face for a moment, then nodded. "I'll have them Monday morning." "James, what's going on?" "I think my brother is fucking my wife." The words hung in the air between us like smoke. Saying them out loud made them real in a way that just thinking them hadn't. Carl set down his beer and leaned forward. "Jesus Christ. Are you sure?" "Not yet. But I'm going to be." Monday morning arrived with the kind of gray October sky that made you want to crawl back under the covers and pretend the world didn't exist. I'd spent the weekend alone in my house, alternating between rage and disbelief, checking Beth's social media for clues like some kind of digital stalker. Her Instagram showed pictures from her sister's house in Springfield, Beth and the girls making cookies, playing board games, looking like the perfect mother-daughter weekend. But I noticed something that made my stomach clench. She wasn't wearing her wedding ring in any of the photos. Carl was waiting in my office when I arrived at Parish Electrical, a manila folder in his hands and an expression like he'd rather be anywhere else on earth. "You're not going to like this," he said, closing the door behind him. He spread John's expense reports across my desk like a coroner laying out evidence. The pattern was clear once you knew what to look for. John's business trips to Chicago coincided perfectly with Beth's yoga retreats, her visits to her sister, her girls' nights out. "Here's the kicker," Carl said, pointing to a receipt dated 3 weeks ago. "He billed dinner for 2 at Romano's downtown. Same night Beth told you she was having dinner with her book club? Romano's. The restaurant where John had taken his ex-wife for their anniversary every year. The man was nothing if not predictable." "There's more," Carl continued, his voice getting quieter. "Mary came to see me Friday after you left. Mary Kowalski was John's assistant, a nervous woman in her 50s who'd been with the company for 12 years. She saw everything that crossed John's desk and heard every phone call he took. She's been keeping track of his appointments, and they don't match his expense reports. The days he claims to be in Chicago, he's been blocking out his calendar as unavailable, but not actually leaving town until evening. What else did Mary tell you?" Carl looked uncomfortable. "She's heard phone calls. Personal calls during business hours. And last month, she saw him leaving the office with flowers that never made it home to his apartment. John lived alone in a downtown condo since his divorce 3 years ago. His ex-wife had taken him for half his assets, which had made him bitter about marriage in general. Apparently not bitter enough to avoid breaking up someone else's. I want to see Mary myself, I said. She's scared, James. She doesn't want to get involved in family business. She's already involved. John made her involved when he started using company resources to fuck my wife. The intercom on my desk buzzed. Joanne's voice came through. James, your wife is online too. I looked at Carl, then picked up the phone. Hi, Beth. Hi. Her voice sounded strained. Listen, I need to talk to you about something. Can you come home for lunch? What about? I'd rather discuss it in person. The same tone she'd used when she told me her father had died. Careful, measured, like she was delivering bad news to a client instead of talking to her husband. I'll be there at noon, I said. After I hung up, Carl gathered the expense reports back into the folder. Want me to come with you? No. This is something I need to handle alone. The drive home felt like traveling to my own execution. Every red light, every stop sign was another few seconds to imagine how this conversation was going to go. Would she confess? Would she lie? Would she try to turn it around and make it my fault somehow? Beth's car was the only one in the driveway. The girls were at school, wouldn't be home until after 3. She'd planned this for maximum privacy. I found her in the living room, sitting on the edge of our cream-colored sofa with a manila envelope in her hands. She'd changed out of her usual casual clothes into a black dress that made her look like she was attending a funeral. Maybe she was. James, sit down, she said without looking at me. I'll stand. She finally met my eyes, and I saw something there I'd never seen before. Relief. Like she was finally getting to put down a weight she'd been carrying for months. I want a divorce, she said, just like that. No preamble, no explanation, no apology. Just 5 words that ended 20 years of marriage. Why? I asked, even though I already knew. We've grown apart. We want different things. The girls and I need a fresh start. We, or you and John? Her face went pale, but she didn't deny it. That told me everything I needed to know. How long? I asked. James, please don't make this harder than it has to be. How fucking long, Beth? She flinched at the profanity. Beth hated swearing, said it was a sign of limited vocabulary. Apparently adultery was fine, but bad language crossed the line. Since June, she said quietly. 4 months. 4 months of lies, of fake yoga retreats, of kissing me goodbye while planning to meet my brother in hotel rooms. 4 months of sitting across from both of them at family dinners, watching them pretend they barely tolerated each other. Where are my daughters? They're staying with my mother until this gets sorted out. Sorted out? You mean until you can poison them against me? I would never... Bullshit. I was getting louder, but I didn't care. You've been planning this for months. The girls, the divorce papers, probably already talked to a lawyer. She held up the manila envelope. I filed this morning. You're being served. By my own wife. How thoughtful. James, I know you're angry. Angry? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. I'm not angry, Beth. I'm impressed. This is really well planned. Fuck my brother for months. Move the kids out of the house. Serve me divorce papers over lunch like we're discussing the weather. Very efficient. Don't be crude. Crude? You want to know what's crude? Crude is screwing your husband's brother. Crude is using company expense accounts to pay for your little romantic getaways. Crude is lying to your daughters about why daddy suddenly isn't welcome in his own house. She stood up, smoothing down her dress. I'm staying at John's until I can find my own place. The girls will stay with my mother until after the holidays. Very cozy, one big happy family. The lawyers will be in touch about visitation and asset division. Assets? You mean the company my family built? The house my salary paid for? The life I gave you? I gave you 20 years, James. I think that's enough. She walked toward the front door, then stopped and turned back. I'll be back tomorrow to get more of my things. Please don't be here. This is my house. Not anymore. After she left, I sat in my empty living room and stared at the divorce papers. Irreconcilable differences. No-fault divorce. Very clean, very legal, very final. My phone rang. John's name on the caller ID. Jimmy, I heard about you and Beth. I'm really sorry, man. The sympathy in his voice was perfect. If I didn't know better, I'd think he actually cared. Yeah, well, these things happen, I said. Listen, maybe you should take some time off. Get your head straight. I can handle things at the office for a while. Of course he could. With me out of the picture, he'd have a clear path to push me out of the company entirely. Probably already had the paperwork drawn up. That's very thoughtful of you, John. Looking out for your little brother. We're family, Jimmy. Family takes care of family. I hung up on him. That evening, I drove to Murphy's and drank whiskey until Carl showed up and drove me home. I told him everything. The divorce papers, Beth's confession, John's fake sympathy call. "What are you going to do?" Carl asked as he helped me up the front steps. "I'm going to destroy them both," I said. "But first, I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of people they really are." Carl looked worried. "James, be careful. Don't do anything stupid." "Stupid? Carl, I've been stupid for 20 years. I'm done being stupid." The next morning, I woke up with a hangover and a plan. Tuesday morning, I walked into Parish Electrical like a man with nothing left to lose, which was pretty much accurate. I'd spent the night making lists, people who needed to know the truth, evidence I could gather legally, ways to make John and Beth's life as uncomfortable as they'd made mine. Mary Kowalski was waiting by the coffee machine when I arrived, stirring sugar into her cup with shaking hands. She looked up when she saw me, and I could see the guilt written all over her face. "Mary, can I talk to you for a minute?" She glanced around the break room like she was looking for an escape route. I really should get back to my desk. "John has a conference call at 9. John's not here yet. His car isn't in the parking lot." She knew I was right. John never arrived before 9:30, one of the privileges of being the boss's son. "Mary, I know about the Chicago trips. I know about the flowers. I know about the personal phone calls." Her face crumpled. "I didn't want to get involved, James. It's not my business what he does." "It became your business when he started using company resources. And it became my business when he started fucking my wife." She flinched at the language, but nodded. "I heard him on the phone with her yesterday morning, after the divorce papers were served. He was laughing about how easy it was." "Easy?" "He said you never suspected anything, said you were too trusting to ever figure it out on your own." She looked down at her coffee cup. "He called you pathetic." Pathetic. My own brother thought I was pathetic. "Mary, I need you to do something for me." "Can you print out John's phone logs for the past 6 months? The company pays for his cell phone, so we have records. I could get fired." "You could get fired for covering up expense account fraud, too. At least this way, you're helping expose it instead of being complicit." She thought about it for a long moment, then nodded. I'll have them by lunch." John arrived at 9:45, looking tanned and relaxed, like a man who'd spent the weekend getting everything he wanted. He nodded to me as he passed my office, that same patronizing smile he'd been wearing since we were kids. At 10:30, I walked into his office without knocking. He was on the phone, feet up on his desk, laughing at something the person on the other end had said. "I'll call you back," he said into the phone, then looked at me. "What's up, Jimmy?" "We need to talk." "Sure, close the door." I closed the door, then turned around and looked at him. Really looked at him. My older brother, the golden boy, the one who'd always gotten everything handed to him. The one who'd now taken the last thing that mattered to me. "I know," I said. His smile faltered just a little. "Know what?" "About you and Beth. About the hotel rooms, the fake business trips, the expense account fraud. I know all of it." He leaned back in his chair, studying my face. "Jimmy, I think you're confused about something. Chicago, John. You've been billing trips to Chicago every other weekend for 4 months, but we don't have any clients in Chicago. Want to explain that? Client development. You have to spend money to make money." "Bullshit. Carl handles all our out-of-state contracts, and he's never heard of any Chicago prospects." John's feet came off the desk. "Are you accusing me of something?" "I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm telling you that I know you've been using company money to finance your affair with my wife." He was quiet for a long moment, then smiled that same patronizing smile. "Jimmy, I think you're having some kind of breakdown. The divorce has obviously affected your judgment." "My judgment is fine. It's my trust that was fucked up. You should probably take some time off, get some help, maybe see someone. Someone like Beth? Leave Beth out of this." "Why? You didn't." John stood up, and for a moment I thought he might actually take a swing at me. He was bigger than me, always had been, but I was angrier than I'd ever been in my life. "You need to leave," he said. "This is my office, too." "Not anymore. I'm suspending you pending a psychological evaluation." "On what grounds?" "Erratic behavior. Paranoid accusations against family members. Inability to cope with personal stress." He'd thought this through. Probably had the paperwork already drawn up, just like Beth had with the divorce papers. "You can't suspend me. I'm a vice president and a shareholder. I can suspend you for cause. And if you keep making these accusations, I'll have no choice but to involve the police." "The police? For what?" "Harassment, stalking, making threats against me and Beth." I laughed. "You're good, John. I'll give you that. Steal my wife, steal my job, then play the victim when I call you on it. Get out, Jimmy, before I call security. I walked to the door, then turned back. This isn't over. Yes, it is. I left his office and walked straight to Mary's desk. She had a manila folder waiting for me, the same guilty expression on her face. Everything you asked for, she said quietly. Phone logs, expense reports, calendar appointments. It's all there. Thank you. James, be careful. He's already talking to HR about you. I took the folder and walked out of Parish Electrical, probably for the last time as an employee. In the parking lot, I sat in my car and went through Mary's evidence. Phone calls to Beth's cell phone during business hours, sometimes lasting an hour or more. Hotel charges on the company credit card. Restaurant bills for 2 people on nights when Beth had told me she was somewhere else. It was all there, documented and dated. A timeline of betrayal that went back 4 months. My phone rang, Ruth's name on the caller ID. James, I just heard from John. He says you're having some kind of breakdown. I'm not having a breakdown, Ruth. I'm having a revelation. Come to my office, now. Ruth's office was on the top floor of Parish Electrical, with windows overlooking the entire city. She'd built this company from nothing, and she didn't tolerate anything that threatened it. She was waiting behind her desk when I arrived, the same expression on her face that she'd worn when she'd fired our previous CFO for embezzling. Sit down and tell me what's going on, she said. I sat down and told her everything. The divorce, the affair, the expense account fraud, the evidence Mary had gathered. I laid it all out like a prosecutor making a case. When I finished, Ruth was quiet for a long time. Then she picked up her phone and dialed an extension. John, come to my office, now. 5 minutes later, John walked in looking confident and concerned, the perfect combination for a man who thought he was about to have his younger brother committed. Ruth, I'm glad you called. James is obviously having some kind of... Sit down and shut up, Ruth said. John's mouth closed like a trap. Ruth opened the folder I'd given her and spread the contents across her desk. Explain these expense reports. John glanced at the papers, and I watched his confidence start to crack. Those are legitimate business expenses. For clients that don't exist? Client development takes time? 4 months and $60,000 worth of time? $60,000. I hadn't added up the total, but Ruth had. $60,000 of company money spent on hotels, restaurants, and travel to finance my brother's affair with my wife. And explain these phone calls, Ruth continued, pointing to the phone logs. 237 calls to Beth's cell phone during business hours over the past 4 months. John looked at me, then back at Ruth. She was having problems with James. I was trying to help. By fucking her? Ruth didn't use profanity often, but when she did, it hit like a hammer. Ruth, I think you're misunderstanding. I'm not misunderstanding anything. You used company resources to have an affair with your brother's wife. You've committed fraud, and you've destroyed this family. John's face was red now. You're going to believe his paranoid accusations over your own son? I'm going to believe the evidence. And the evidence says you're a liar and a thief. Ruth stood up and walked to the window, looking out over the city she'd conquered through 40 years of hard work. You're fired, she said without turning around. You can't fire me. I'm the president. I'm the majority shareholder. I can fire anyone I want. This is about James poisoning you against me. This is about you stealing from the company and lying to my face. John looked at me with pure hatred. You think you've won something? Beth doesn't love you, Jimmy. She never did. She told me she's been pretending for years, waiting for a chance to get out. The words hit like a physical blow, but I kept my face neutral. Maybe, but at least I never had to steal her from my own brother. Fuck you. No, John. Fuck you. And fuck Beth. And fuck the last 20 years of my life that I wasted trusting both of you. Ruth turned around. John, clean out your office. Security will escort you out. This isn't over, John said, looking at both of us. Yes, it is, Ruth replied. After John left, Ruth and I sat in silence for a while. Finally, she spoke. I'm sorry, James. I should have seen this coming. How could you? I lived with Beth for 20 years and didn't see it coming. What are you going to do now? I'm going to make sure everyone knows what they did, and then I'm going to make sure they pay for it. Ruth nodded. The company will support you. Whatever you need. I need John's personnel file. I need Beth banned from company property. And I need everyone to know exactly why. Done. I left Ruth's office feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. Not hope for reconciliation or forgiveness, but hope for justice. Hope for revenge. John and Beth had taken everything from me, but they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd underestimated me. That was going to cost them everything. The news of John's firing spread through parish electrical like wildfire. By Thursday morning, everyone knew the basic facts. John Tate had been terminated for expense account fraud and inappropriate conduct. What they didn't know were the delicious details, and I was more than happy to provide them. I started with Joanne, my assistant, who had the biggest mouth in the office and the least sympathy for cheating spouses. Her ex-husband had left her for his secretary, so she had strong opinions about adultery. He was using company money to take her to hotels, I told her over coffee in the break room, making sure my voice was just loud enough for the other early arrivals to hear. Every other weekend for 4 months. $60,000. $60,000? Joanne's voice carried across the room like a bullhorn. To sleep with his own brother's wife? The same hotels where he used to take his ex-wife for their anniversary. Real romantic. By lunch, the story had evolved and expanded as office gossip always does. John hadn't just stolen $60,000, he'd stolen $100,000. He hadn't just been sleeping with Beth, he'd been planning to leave the company and start a competing business with her money. The truth was bad enough, but the rumors were delicious. Carl found me in my office around 2 o'clock, looking worried. James, you need to be careful. Word is getting back to John about what people are saying. Good. Let him hear it. He's threatening to sue for defamation. Let him try. Truth is an absolute defense against defamation. What about Beth? How's she handling all this? I smiled. Beth's about to find out that being the other woman isn't as glamorous as she thought. That evening, I drove to the Millbrook Heights Country Club, where Beth had been a member for 10 years. Wednesday nights were ladies' bridge night, and Beth never missed it, or at least she never used to miss it. I found her in the bar, sitting alone with a glass of white wine, staring at her phone. She looked up when she saw me, and I was surprised by how tired she looked. The past week had aged her. James, what are you doing here? I'm still a member. My dues are paid through the end of the year. I sat down across from her without being invited. The bartender came over, and I ordered a whiskey. Where is everyone? I asked, looking around the nearly empty bar. Bridge was canceled tonight. Really? That's unusual. You ladies never cancel bridge night. Beth's cheeks flushed pink. There was a scheduling conflict. Or maybe they just don't want to associate with an adulteress. Don't. Don't what? Tell the truth? I thought you liked the truth now. Isn't that why you left? To live authentically? The bartender brought my whiskey. I raised the glass in a mock toast. To authentic living, and to the consequences thereof. Beth finished her wine in one gulp and stood up. I don't have to listen to this. No, you don't. You can go home to John's condo and pretend this is all going according to plan. But we both know it's not, don't we? She hesitated, and I knew I'd hit a nerve. Having second thoughts? I asked. About leaving you? Never. About John? That's a different story, isn't it? She didn't answer, but she didn't leave either. Let me guess, I continued. The romance is fading now that it's not a secret anymore. Hard to feel like star-crossed lovers when everyone knows you're just a couple of cheaters. You don't know what you're talking about. I know John. I've known him for 42 years. He gets bored easily, and he hates being embarrassed. Right now, you're both. Beth's phone buzzed. She looked at it and frowned. Problem? I asked. My mother wants to see the girls this weekend, but she doesn't want John there. Smart woman. She raised you better than this. She doesn't understand the situation. She understands it perfectly. Her daughter destroyed a 20-year marriage to sleep with her brother-in-law. What's complicated about that? Beth's eyes filled with tears, but I felt no sympathy for her. She'd made her choices. The girls are asking questions, she said quietly. What kind of questions? About why we can't all be together for Halloween. About why you're not living at home anymore. About why their friends' parents are acting weird around me. And what are you telling them? That sometimes adults grow apart. Bullshit. Tell them the truth. Tell them Mommy fell in love with Uncle John and decided Daddy wasn't good enough anymore. I won't poison them against you. You already have. The minute you moved them out of their home and into your boyfriend's condo, you poisoned them. The minute you chose John over their father, you poisoned them. Beth was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. I never meant for it to happen this way. How did you mean for it to happen? You thought I'd just quietly disappear? That everyone would congratulate you on finding true love? I thought you'd understand eventually. Understand what? That my wife and my brother are selfish, lying pieces of shit? Oh, I understand that perfectly. I finished my whiskey and stood up. Enjoy your evening, Beth? Say hello to John for me. I left her crying in the country club bar and drove home to my empty house. But for the first time in a week, the emptiness didn't feel oppressive. It felt like possibility. Friday morning brought more good news. Mary called me at home to tell me that John had been to the office trying to clean out his desk, but security had escorted him out before he could take anything. He was furious, she said, screaming about how this was all your fault, how you'd turned everyone against him. What did Ruth say? She wasn't here. She's in meetings with the lawyers all day, working on the details of his termination. And the staff? They're all talking about it. Joanne told everyone about the expense reports, and now people are remembering other things. Times when John left early for client meetings that never resulted in new business. Phone calls he took in private. It's like once they knew what to look for, the pattern was obvious. That afternoon, Carl came by the house with a bottle of good bourbon and an update on the company's situation. Ruth wants you back, he said as we sat on my back porch, watching the October leaves fall. She's offering you John's position as president. I don't want John's position. I want my own position, and I want everyone to know why John doesn't have his anymore. She's also talking about changing the succession plan, making sure John can never come back. Good. Carl poured 2 glasses of bourbon and handed me one. What about Beth? What's your plan there? Beth is going to discover that actions have consequences, and that the life she thought she wanted isn't the life she's going to get. Meaning? Meaning John is about to realize that being with Beth means being responsible for Beth, and her daughters, and her expenses, and her expectations. All the things I used to handle. Carl laughed. You think he's not ready for that? I know he's not. John has never been responsible for anyone but himself. He's 42 years old, and he's never even kept a houseplant alive. And when he figures that out, he'll try to get rid of her. But it won't be that easy. Beth gave up everything for him. Her marriage, her home, her social standing. She's not going to let him walk away without a fight. And you'll be watching from the sidelines. I'll be helping the process along. Carl raised his glass. To justice. To revenge, I corrected. We drank, and I started planning my next move. November arrived with the kind of bitter cold that cuts through your coat and settles in your bones. I'd been back at Parish Electrical for 2 weeks as the new president, and the irony wasn't lost on me that John's betrayal had actually improved my career prospects. But I wasn't done with John and Beth. Not even close. The first crack in their perfect romance appeared on a Tuesday morning when Mary called me with interesting news. John came by the office last night, she said. Security cameras caught him trying to get into the building after hours. What did he want? I'm not sure, but he was with Beth, and they were arguing in the parking lot, loud enough that the security guard heard them through the glass. About what? Money. The guard said Beth was crying, something about the girls needing things, and John saying it wasn't his responsibility. I smiled. John was learning that supporting a ready-made family was more expensive than just buying hotel rooms and dinners for 2. Anything else? Beth's been calling here, trying to reach Ruth. Says she needs to discuss the girls' college funds. The college funds. I'd forgotten about those. Beth and I had set up education accounts for Bew and Bree years ago, funded through Parish Electrical's employee benefit program. Since I was no longer married to Beth, she'd lost access to those funds. What did Ruth tell her? To have her lawyer call Ruth's lawyer. Perfect. Beth was starting to realize that divorcing me meant losing more than just a husband. She was losing the financial security that came with being married to a Tate. That afternoon, I put my plan into motion. I called Beth's sister Jennifer in Springfield, the one who'd supposedly been hosting Beth and the girls for all those weekend visits. Hi, Jennifer, it's James. Oh, hi. Her voice was cold, but not hostile. I heard about the divorce. I'm sorry. Thanks. Listen, I need to ask you something, and I'd appreciate an honest answer. Okay. How many times has Beth actually visited you in the past 6 months? Long pause. James, I don't think I should get involved in this. Jennifer, I'm not asking you to take sides. I just need to know the truth about where my daughters have been spending their weekends. Another pause. Beth hasn't been here since Easter. Easter, 7 months ago. What about the girls? Have they been staying with you recently? Not since the separation started. Beth said they were staying with her mother. Beth's mother lived in Florida. The girls hadn't been staying with Jennifer, and they hadn't been staying with their grandmother, which meant they'd been staying in John's condo, watching their mother play house with their uncle. Thank you for being honest, I said. James, I want you to know that I never approved of what Beth did, what she's doing. It's not right. I appreciate that. And if you need someone to testify about the girl's living situation for custody purposes, I'll do it. Bless Jennifer. She'd always been the moral compass in Beth's family. That evening, I drove to John's condo downtown. I didn't plan to go in or cause a scene. I just wanted to see how the happy couple was adjusting to domestic life. John lived on the 15th floor of a luxury building with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the river. Very bachelor pad, very expensive, very much not designed for a woman with 2 teenage daughters. I parked across the street and waited. At 7:30, Beth's BMW pulled into the parking garage. At 8:15, I saw her silhouette in the window, moving around what I assumed was the kitchen. At 8:45, John's silhouette joined her, and even from 15 floors down, I could tell they were arguing. Beth's hands were moving the way they did when she was upset. John kept turning away from her, looking out the window. At 9:20, John left. I watched him get in his Porsche and drive away, leaving Beth alone in the condo. I waited until 10:30, then called Beth's cell phone. "Hello?" She sounded tired. "Hi, Beth. It's James. What do you want?" "I wanted to check on the girls. Make sure they're adjusting okay to their new living situation." "They're fine." "Are they there? Can I talk to them?" "They're at my mother's." "In Florida?" Pause. "Yes." "That's funny. I talked to your mother yesterday. She said she hasn't seen the girls since summer." Longer pause. "James, what do you want?" "I want to know where my daughters are living, and I want to know why you're lying about it." "They're staying with friends while I get settled." "Which friends? That's not your concern anymore." "Actually, it is. I'm their father, and I have a right to know where they're living. You gave up that right when you tried to destroy their mother's reputation." "I didn't destroy your reputation, Beth. You did that all by yourself when you decided to fuck my brother." She hung up on me. The next morning, I called my lawyer and told him I wanted to file for emergency custody of my daughters. Not because I thought I could win, but because I wanted to force Beth to explain to a judge where the girls were living and why she'd been lying about it. The custody hearing was scheduled for the following Friday. In the meantime, I had other plans for John and Beth. I started with their social media accounts. Both John and Beth had been posting pictures of their new life together. Romantic dinners, weekend getaways, couple selfies with captions about finding true love and new beginnings. I screenshot every post, every comment, every public display of their affair. Then I created a timeline, cross-referencing their social media posts with John's expense reports and Beth's lies to me about her whereabouts. The result was a detailed documentary of their affair, complete with dates, locations, and company credit card receipts. I called it A Love Story, How John and Beth Tate Found Each Other, using Parish Electrical's money. I didn't post it anywhere. I didn't need to. I just printed out copies and left them in strategic locations around town: the country club, the coffee shop where Beth met her friends, the gym where John worked out, the school where my daughter's friends' parents would see them. By Thursday, my phone was ringing constantly. Friends, acquaintances, even people I barely knew, all calling to tell me they'd seen the document and they couldn't believe what John and Beth had done. $60,000? My neighbor Dave asked when he called. He spent $60,000 of company money on hotels? That's just what we can prove, I said. There's probably more. And Beth was lying to you about where she was going? Every weekend for 4 months? Jesus, James, I'm sorry, man. That's fucked up. The calls kept coming. By Friday morning, everyone in Millbrook Heights knew the details of John and Beth's affair. The grocery store clerks knew, the mailman knew, the barista at Starbucks knew. Beth called me at 6 a.m., hysterical. "What did you do?" she screamed into the phone. "I told the truth. You humiliated me. You humiliated the girls. I didn't humiliate anyone. You did that when you decided to have an affair with my brother. People are staring at me everywhere I go. Then maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to destroy our marriage. I hate you." "Good. Now you know how I felt when I found out you were fucking John." She hung up, but called back an hour later. "The custody hearing," she said. "I'll make a deal with you." "What kind of deal?" "Drop the emergency custody petition, and I'll agree to joint custody. 50-50. "Where are the girls living now?" "With John and me. In his 1-bedroom condo. It's a 2-bedroom. Still not appropriate for 2 teenage girls. It's temporary. We're looking for a house." "With what money? John doesn't have a job, and you don't have any skills." "John will find something." "Will he?" "Because word around town is that John Tate is a liar and a thief who can't be trusted. That's not exactly a selling point for potential employers." "You did this. You poisoned everyone against us." "I told people what you did. If that poisoned them against you, maybe you should have made better choices. Beth was quiet for a long moment. Then, what do you want, James? I want you to admit what you did. Publicly. Never. Then I'll see you in court. The custody hearing was a disaster for Beth. She had to admit that the girls were living in John's condo, sleeping on an air mattress in the living room. She had to admit that she'd lied about them staying with her mother or her sister. She had to admit that she had no job, no income, and no permanent housing plan. The judge awarded me temporary primary custody pending a full evaluation. As we left the courthouse, Beth grabbed my arm. "This isn't over," she said. "Yes, it is," I replied. "You just don't know it yet." That weekend, Bew and Bree came home. Really home, to the house where they'd grown up, to their own rooms and their own beds. "Dad," Bew said as I tucked her in Saturday night, "I'm sorry about Mom and Uncle John." "You don't have anything to be sorry for, sweetheart." I knew it was wrong. Even before I understood what was happening, I knew it was wrong. It's not your fault. None of this is your fault. Are you going to be okay? I kissed her forehead. I'm going to be better than okay. We all are. And for the first time in months, I believed it. December arrived with the first real snow of the season, covering Millbrook Heights in a blanket of white that made everything look clean and new. I was sitting in my office at Parish Electrical, reviewing the quarterly reports, when Mary knocked on my door. "James, there's something you need to see." She handed me a manila envelope marked confidential, with my name written on it in Beth's careful handwriting. "This was delivered this morning by courier," Mary said. "The delivery guy said it was urgent." I opened the envelope and found a single sheet of paper with a message that made my blood run cold. "James, I know what you've been doing. The documents you've been spreading around town contain confidential company information that you had no right to share. That's corporate espionage, and it's a felony. Meet me at Romano's tonight at 8 p.m., or I'll have you arrested. Come alone." Beth Mary saw my expression. "Bad news?" "Beth thinks she's found a way to turn this around. What are you going to do?" I looked at the letter again. Beth was right about one thing. The expense reports and phone logs I'd been sharing did contain confidential company information. If she wanted to make trouble for me, she probably could. But Beth had made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated me again. "I'm going to end this," I said. That evening, I arrived at Romano's 15 minutes early and asked for a table in the back corner where I could see the entire restaurant. Beth arrived exactly at 8, wearing a black coat and the kind of determined expression she used to wear when she was about to negotiate with contractors. She sat down across from me without taking off her coat. "Thank you for coming," she said. "What do you want, Beth?" "I want you to stop. The harassment, the public humiliation, the lies you've been spreading, all of it. I haven't lied about anything. You violated corporate confidentiality agreements by sharing those documents. That's a crime." "Is it?" "Because according to my lawyer, whistleblowing is protected when it exposes fraud and embezzlement." Beth's confidence wavered slightly. "You're not a whistleblower. You're a bitter ex-husband trying to destroy his ex-wife. I'm a company officer exposing misconduct by a former employee. The fact that the former employee was fucking my wife is just context." "Stop saying that." "What? That John was fucking you? But that's what happened, isn't it? That's how this whole thing started." Beth looked around the restaurant, checking to see if anyone was listening. Romano's was busy, but not so busy that our conversation couldn't be overheard. "Lower your voice," she hissed. "Why? Embarrassed?" "You weren't embarrassed when you were meeting John here for romantic dinners while I was home with our daughters." "That's over." The way she said it made me look at her more closely. Beth looked tired, older than her 36 years. Her hair was different, shorter, and she wasn't wearing her wedding ring. But then again, neither was I. "Over?" I asked. "John and we've decided to take a break." I almost laughed. "A break? What happened to true love?" "It's complicated." "Let me guess." "John got tired of playing house with someone else's kids, and you got tired of being broke." Beth's cheeks flushed red. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I?" John never had to support anyone but himself. Now suddenly he's got a girlfriend and 2 teenage daughters to worry about, no job, and a reputation that makes him unemployable in this town. That's a lot of pressure for someone who's never been responsible for anyone else. He's looking for work. Where? Who's going to hire him? Everyone knows he's a thief and a liar. He made mistakes. He made choices. You both did, and now you're living with the consequences. Beth was quiet for a moment, staring at her hands. When she looked up, there were tears in her eyes. "I lost everything," she said quietly. Yes, you did. My friends won't talk to me. My own sister barely speaks to me. The girls blame me for breaking up the family. Because you did break up the family. I know that. She was getting louder again. I know I made mistakes. I know I hurt you and the girls. But I can't undo it now. No, you can't. So what happens now? You keep destroying me until there's nothing left? I leaned back in my chair and studied her face. This was the woman I'd loved for 20 years, the mother of my children, the person I'd trusted more than anyone else in the world. And she'd thrown it all away for a few months of excitement with my brother. What happens now, I said, is that you learn to live with what you've done. Just like I had to learn to live with what you did to me. I never meant to hurt you. But you did. You destroyed 20 years of marriage, broke up our family, and humiliated me in front of everyone I know. And you did it all while lying to my face and stealing from my company. I didn't steal anything. You benefited from John's theft. Every hotel room, every dinner, every romantic weekend was paid for with stolen money. Beth was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks just like that night at the country club. What do you want from me? She asked. I want you to admit what you did. Publicly. I want you to take responsibility for your choices instead of trying to blame me or make excuses. And if I do that, then maybe we can figure out how to co-parent our daughters without destroying them in the process. Beth wiped her eyes with her napkin. I can't go back to the way things were. I don't want you back, Beth. That ship sailed the minute you decided John was more important than our family. Then what do you want? I want you to face the consequences of your actions like an adult. I want you to stop playing the victim. And I want you to put our daughter's needs ahead of your own for once in your life. I always put the girls first. Bullshit. If you'd put the girls first, you never would have moved them into John's condo. You never would have exposed them to your affair. You never would have torn their family apart for your own selfish desires. Beth was quiet for a long time. Finally, she spoke. What if I made a public statement? Admitted that I made mistakes, that I hurt you and the girls? What kind of statement? I don't know. A letter to the editor of the newspaper? Something on social media? No. If you're going to do this, you're going to do it right. What do you mean? I pulled out my phone and opened the voice recording app. I mean, you're going to tell the truth, right here, right now. About the affair, about the lies, about what you did to our family. And I'm going to record it. Beth stared at the phone like it was a loaded gun. You want me to confess? On tape? I want you to tell the truth. For once. And then what? You'll leave me alone? I'll stop actively working to destroy you. But I can't control what other people think or do. You'll have to live with the consequences of your choices for the rest of your life. Beth looked around the restaurant again, then back at me. If I do this, I want something in return. You're not in a position to negotiate. I want you to help John find a job. I almost laughed. You want me to help the man who stole my wife and embezzled from my company? He's the father of your nieces now. Whether you like it or not, John isn't the father of anyone. He's a 42-year-old man-child who's never been responsible for anything in his life. He's trying to change. Is he? Because last I heard, he was living in his parents' basement and drinking himself to sleep every night. Beth's face went pale. How did you know that? This is a small town, Beth. Everyone knows everything. She was quiet for another moment, then nodded toward my phone. If I do this, if I make your recording, you'll consider helping John? I'll consider not actively working against him. That's the best I can do. Beth took a deep breath, then nodded. Okay, turn it on. I pressed record and set the phone on the table between us. State your name and today's date, I said. Elizabeth Tate, December 15th, 2024. Tell me about your relationship with John Tate. Beth looked at the phone, then at me, then back at the phone. John and I had an affair. It started in June and lasted until November. During that time, I lied to my husband James about where I was going and who I was with. I told him I was visiting my sister, or going to yoga retreats, or having girls' nights out. Instead, I was meeting John at hotels and restaurants. How was this affair funded? John paid for everything using his parish electrical company credit card. Hotels, dinners, travel expenses. He told me it was legitimate business expenses, but I knew that wasn't true. What did you know about John's employment status? I knew he was using company resources for personal use. I knew the Chicago business trips were fake. I knew he was lying to his mother and to the board of directors. Why did you participate in this deception? Beth was crying again, but she kept talking. Because I was selfish. because I was unhappy in my marriage and John made me feel special, because I convinced myself that I deserved to be happy, even if it meant hurting other people. What about your daughters? I told myself I was protecting them by keeping the affair secret. But really, I was just protecting myself. I didn't want to face the consequences of what I was doing. Do you take full responsibility for the end of your marriage? Yes, James didn't do anything wrong. He was a good husband and a good father. I destroyed our marriage because I was selfish and weak. Is there anything else you want to say? Beth looked directly at me, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry, James. I'm sorry I hurt you, and I'm sorry I hurt our daughters. I'm sorry I destroyed our family for something that wasn't even real, and I'm sorry it took losing everything to make me realize what I'd done. I stopped the recording and put my phone away. Thank you, I said. What happens now? Now you figure out how to rebuild your life, and I figure out how to forgive you. Can you? Forgive me? I thought about it for a moment. Maybe. Someday. For the girl's sake. Beth nodded and stood up. I should go. Beth? She turned back. For what it's worth, I hope you find a way to be happy. Just not at someone else's expense next time. She walked away without answering, leaving me alone at the table where she and John had shared so many romantic dinners on the company's dime. I finished my drink and drove home to my daughters, who were waiting for me with homework questions and stories about their day. Normal, everyday things that suddenly felt precious. The recording of Beth's confession never saw the light of day. I didn't need to use it. The truth had already done its work. John eventually found a job selling insurance in another city, far enough away that we'd never have to see each other at family gatherings. Beth got a job at a local real estate office and slowly started rebuilding her life and her relationship with our daughters. As for me, I got something better than revenge. I got my life back, I got my daughters back, and I got the satisfaction of knowing that sometimes, just sometimes, the good guys win. 6 months later, I was sitting in my office when Mary knocked on my door. There's someone here to see you, she said. Who? Your brother. I looked up from my computer. Tell him I'm busy. He says it's important. Something about making amends. I thought about it for a moment, then nodded. Send him in. John walked into my office looking older, thinner, and considerably more humble than the last time I'd seen him. He sat down across from my desk without being invited. Hello, Jimmy. It's James, and you have 5 minutes. I came to apologize. Okay. What I did was wrong. The affair, the embezzlement, the lies, all of it. I destroyed our family, and I destroyed your marriage, and I'm sorry. I leaned back in my chair and studied his face. He looked sincere, but John had always been a good actor. Are you? I asked. Am I what? Sorry. Or are you just sorry you got caught? John was quiet for a moment. Both, I guess. I'm sorry I did it, and I'm sorry about what happened after. What do you want, John? I want to make things right. You can't. What's done is done. I know I can't undo what I did, but maybe I can make up for it somehow. How? I don't know. Whatever you think is fair. I looked at my brother, this man I'd known my entire life, who'd shared my childhood and my family and ultimately betrayed everything we'd built together. You want to make things right, I said. Yes. Then stay away from me. Stay away from my daughters. Stay away from my company and my life. That's how you make things right. John nodded slowly. Okay. And John? Yeah? If you ever come near my family again, if you ever try to contact Beth or manipulate her or use her to get back at me, I will destroy you. Completely. Do you understand? I understand. He stood up and walked to the door, then turned back. For what it's worth, Jimmy, James, you won. You got everything, and I lost everything. I hope that makes you happy. It doesn't make me happy, I said, but it makes me even. After he left, I sat in my office for a long time, thinking about family and betrayal and the price of revenge. Then I picked up my phone and called my daughters to see if they wanted to get pizza for dinner, because in the end, that's what mattered. Not the revenge, not the victory, but the family I had left and the life I was building with them. The rest was just noise,